I'll let Jess take it away.
Hey everyone, I'm really excited to be here today with you and make Dandan Noodles. This is a dish I've made with my sister and my family, and typically we don't really use a recipe. So coming up with this recipe was like putting pieces of a puzzle together. But I'm really excited by the result. I was able to test it beforehand and can assure you that is really delicious. So Dandan noodles is a dish from Sichuan in China. It's a province, and if you think of China on the map, it's smack dab sort of in the middle. This region is really known for very delicious, spicy, and there's a word you can use to describe Sichuan food, which is ma la, and that translates to mind. Tongue-numbing food, which sounds a little bit scary, but I can assure you it's delicious as well. And the nice thing about this dish is you can sort of tone back the spiciness, but this is going to be a spicy dish. I can't get away from that fact. So if you had a chance to look over the doc beforehand, you'll see a couple of different components of this dish. First, we have the chili oil, which is going to be homemade. In case you're not able to get these ingredients, you can substitute with the pre-made Sichuan chili oil. I've never done that, but I would recommend in the future going forward that you make this homemade chili oil. It's really easy to make and really fun. And if you don't use it all, you can also put it on like dumplings or egg salad sandwiches, and I even like to put it on bagels with cream cheese. So I'm like that type of cook in the kitchen, just mixing things. We have also the meat or mushroom mix. So if you're vegetarian, this is something you can use, and that's like a component of the dish that sort of rounds it out. And then we also have the dandan sauce. And so that's actually, we use the chili oil that we make earlier and we put that in the dandan sauce. It also includes sesame paste, which is an ingredient I talked about earlier. It's made with sesame oil and sesame seeds. And if you don't have it on you, you can use tahini, but would recommend buying it from a Chinese grocery or Asian grocery store that you can find. And then finally, bringing it all together, we have the noodles. And the noodles, I personally like the wide, but a lot of people really enjoy it when it's thin, and then some other garnishes on top. And so that together makes a really delicious dish that is dandan noodles. And the first thing I like to start with is the chili oil, because that is the one that we need to sort of measure with the temperature and measure out all the ingredients and sort of just have on the back burner. So the first thing I do, if you look at the ingredients, is I measured out 2 tablespoons of Sichuan peppercorns, and these kind of look like this. These are the things that add the spice to the dish, like add the mind-numbing spice. So you can find these in your grocery store. The other things you'll need are cinnamon sticks, a bay leaf, star anise, and obviously the oil. And then also the final thing you'll need that you won't add to this. So right now I've put all these ingredients in a bowl. Take a separate bowl and put the crushed red pepper flakes in them. So I'm just having here. So sort of the roadmap for this chili oil is we're going to heat up the oil with these ingredients and then use a strainer to put the oil on top of these chili flakes. So this is what's gonna end up in the oil. These things are just gonna be discarded and sort of left decomposted or removed. One thing I learned early on in this process, I did not have access to this type of red chili flake. This is the one that you can find specifically in Chinese grocery stores or in your Asian grocery mart. It says dried red pepper, kind of looks like this. It's a little bit sparser than like your normal red pepper flakes. I have, in the past, I have used red pepper flakes, and that also makes a delicious chili oil. But if you can find these are the top type of flakes for this type of dish. Okay, so to repeat, we have everything in this bowl minus the crushed red pepper flakes. And we're going to add 1 cup of neutral oil. And so let me get a cup. So that could be, your canola oil, could be a type of peanut oil, vegetable oil. Just make sure it's neutral. And so it has like an okay boiling point.
Jess, while you're measuring that out, we do have a couple questions.
Sure, I can take questions right now. I've been just speeding up, so please interrupt me at any time.
So our first question is, what kind of meat can we use if they want to use meat instead of the mushroom mixture?
Yeah, sure. So I actually was unfortunate. I wasn't able to pick up mushrooms today, but I had some ground chicken left over, so I'm gonna use ground chicken today. You can also use ground pork. It's recommended. Pork is actually one of the more commonly used meats in Sichuan cuisine. So either of those really work.
Awesome. We have 2 more. What is siu mi ya kai?
Yeah, that is preserved vegetables, and it comes in. I linked to the ingredient in the recipe book. You can find it on Amazon or your local grocery store, and it's sort of adds like a tangy tartness to the dandan noodles, which is really more spicy. So it's a nice way to balance out. I unfortunately don't have it today with me. I usually don't make it with it, but I know I've tasted recipes with it, and it is really delicious too.
Awesome, thank you. And then one more question. Do the different types of oil that you use change the flavor? Like you said, you could use canola or something else.
I haven't done a really scientific test on this, but I mainly use canola and vegetable oil, and both of them sort of come out very much the same. So it shouldn't affect the tasting at the end of this.
Sorry, we have one more.
No, you're good. Yeah.
I think you're just about to get to this, but does the oil go into the star anise and peppercorn bowl or in the chili flake bowl?
Yeah, so I'm putting it into the first bowl. So this is with the star anise, peppercorns, bay leaf, cinnamon stick. Yeah.
Great,
And I'm
thanks.
leaving the chili flakes on the side. So that's when the oil's been heated up.
Okay, awesome. I'll let you do your thing now.
So I'm just gonna bring you over with me to the stove. Sorry about that. So right now I have a medium-sized bowl on my stove. I'm gonna dump the contents of the oil and the spices into the bowl, and I'm gonna start heating it up. I'm gonna start actually with medium low, and what I sort of want the oil to heat, the temperature I want the oil to heat up to is around like 310, 325, because that's where sort of the spices will get seeped into the oil and give it a lot of flavor. So that takes around, I would say, 8 to 10 minutes. And so the tricky part of this part is that you don't want it to really go over, because then you'll end up burning the ingredients. So a careful eye is really important. So heating up slowly, whether that's starting at medium low and then transferring to simmer once it starts heating up, or even removing it from the flame. That's like a very important part of this process. So I'm just gonna let that sort of sit. If you have temperature gauge, that's awesome. If you don't, again, like 8 to 10 minutes with this amount should be hopefully fine. And you can also play along with me too. Just sort of watch the color, watch how it bubbles, and that might give a good indication. In the meantime, I'm going to also start prepping the marinade for the meat / mushroom mixture. So this is going to, again, if you have a lot of bowls, this might be a good time to bring out some more bowls, because we're going to be just like dumping the different sauces and getting it ready for later. So let me see. So
Jess, we have a couple more questions if you don't mind. So should those who are cooking start cooking their noodles, like boiling the noodles?
The noodles are the things that I feel like will dry out the most easily or become a little bit mushy and mushed together. So I usually like to save that for the end.
Okay.
Depending on the noodles you get, yeah, those will probably take no longer than 8 to 10 minutes to cook, just to boil the water and like get that. So you could start boiling the water, just getting that ready. But right now I'm focusing on the meat mixture. So we'll get to that soon.
And we have one question about the chili oil. How do you store it? Do you leave it in the refrigerator or just leave it on the counter?
So I would leave it in the refrigerator, just put like a little saran wrap or like a little topper, and that can last for, I usually say up to a month before I discard it. Usually when I make chili oil, I add shallots and garlic, and that like adds more flavor to it. For this recipe, I'm not, because it's less of the star of the dish than like a crucial component. But then that only lasts like 3 weeks. So this one will last for up to a month or something like that. So enjoy.
Thank you.
All right, any more questions?
I think that's it for now.
Okay, cool. So right now I'm going to start measuring out the mix. So we want 2 teaspoons of hoisin sauce. Hoisin sauce is like a type of marinade that's used in a lot of Chinese cooking, for like porks or meats or like soups and dippings. So I'm gonna just measure out 2 tablespoons, or 2 teaspoons. And then I'm going to also do 1 tablespoon of sesame oil. So getting the marinades, should smell delicious right now. And then we want a seasoning. So you can either use rice wine vinegar, Chinese rice wine vinegar, Shaoxing wine, or you can use mirin, which is used in a lot of Japanese cooking, and it's a type of seasoning. So I have mirin right now on me, so I'm going to use mirin, and I do 2 teaspoons of that. So, and a lot of this is again, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of these measurements are things that I sort of discerned while testing this recipe. But a lot of times the measurements don't really matter. You just need to know the proximate amount of sauces that you'll need, because it will end up tasting delicious, I guarantee you. So I'm gonna mix this.
It looked like you used 2 tablespoons of the hoisin, not 2 teaspoons.
Yeah, I did go a little overboard on the hoisin, so I might take a little bit out. Yeah, I'm gonna take a little bit out because I think there's a little too much. Okay.
Yes, if someone has both chow mein and pad thai noodles, which type of noodle do you recommend?
Let me see. I think chow mein is an egg-based noodle. Let me. I personally don't know the specific ingredients, but I would say pad thai is more like a clear noodle.
I would say pad thai wouldn't work because it's like a rice noodle. It doesn't work for this.
Yeah.
And chow mein has eggs in it. It doesn't make sense either.
I would recommend the chow mein actually, because I've eaten. I'm just thinking about the sauces with the pad thai noodle or a chow mein noodle. I think I would recommend the chow mein noodle just because it has egg. It's a little fuller, but it's a delicious sauce, so it's gonna work. It's gonna work either way, if in case you've already started cooking.
Great, thanks, Jess.
Yeah, so we have the marinade, and I'm going to just check on the oil. It's starting to rise. It's still a little bit slow. So not quite there yet. And now I'm going to start cooking the meat. And this is something I can save for later too. Sorry, I have so many pots in this kitchen. So I'm just moving so I can make room for the camera. Alrighty. So right now I'm using a wok, but you can use like a large skillet. There's not really a specific pot you need to have to make this recipe. But to make the chicken, you're going to need, let's see, you're going to need 1 cup of ground meat, and that's about, if I take a look at, I just got like a pack of chicken from Whole Foods, and I usually use half of this, and that's about what we need. You can also, you're free to make more if you like more meat in your dish. You just have to double the recipe that's shown to you. Or if you want more mushrooms, you can do the same thing as well. So I have the little marinade that I'm gonna add the chicken, and I'm going to start heating up the wok. I'm gonna put it on like a medium high. I'm gonna add some oil. I think this is the hard part, is the splattering at the beginning. So if you have any tips for preventing splattering, please let me know, because I am also figuring that out. So yeah, we're gonna start heating up the meat. Checking on the oil again, still a little low.
Excuse me, how do we prepare the mushrooms?
Yes, okay, sorry. If you're making with mushrooms,
Yeah.
I would like to just chop up the mushrooms, sort of cube them, and into small pieces. And so once you add them to this, with the marinade and mix, they should shrink a little bit, but they should be chewy as well.
Okay, and how do we know when the oil mixture is ready?
Are you using a temperature gauge?
Did you say 310?
Yes, 310 to 320.
I don't have a thermometer that goes that high.
Oh, no. Usually there's some slight bubbles, and I usually work with a thermometer, because I think it's like the most precise way for me to tell. I'm still a young chef, but when there's some bubbling and you can tell it's heating up, like definitely turn it down to simmering.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. So any more questions?
When do we add the preserved vegetable if we're going to use it?
Yeah, for sure. So the preserved vegetables are going to come a little bit later. So those are tossed in a little bit after you toss in the marinade. So to have those ready, and there's not an exact precise measurement I use, but you can use, like, let's say like a fourth of a cup to half a cup of the half a cup of the preserved vegetables. And you can always add more too. It's very how much you prefer in your recipe.
One more question, Jess, and then we'll let you cook. If we're using tofu, do you need to increase the amount of marinade or sauce, because it absorbs a lot of liquid?
Yeah, I would increase the amount of marinade or sauce. I don't cook with a lot of tofu, so I can't give precise measurements, but I think you're inspiring me to make this recipe with tofu in the future. So I can figure that out. And
I guess whoever's cooking with tofu, if you want to like figure out the proportions, I guess just like either double it, 1.5 it. I don't know. So
I know the wok is smoking right now, so I'm gonna add the chicken.
Excuse me, I have a question here about the preserved vegetables. Is it like salty or is it sour? What kind of taste is it?
Sorry, I missed the question. Can you repeat it?
Oh, I'm just curious about the preserved, that ya chai thing.
Yes.
Is it what's the flavor? Is it like a salty or sour? What kind of preservative?
I think it's like a little tart. If you ever had preserved vegetables before, it's a little bit tart, a little salty, and it's really good in savory dishes. So
I see. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I'm starting to cook the chicken with the oil, making sure it's cooked. angle down a little bit more. I'm just mixing to make sure it's cooked, monitoring the oil. It's slowly creeping up. So the chicken's cooking. It looks delicious. You can smell it. And so you really want it to be mostly cooked before you add the marinade. I'm just tossing it around. I lowered it to a medium low. So the oil is not splattering totally. Yeah, just making sure there's no more pink, because the last thing we want to be eating is raw dandan noodles. Yeah, and so hopefully if you have the mushrooms, you're also cooking it. They should be shrinking in size. Or if you're cooking with tofu, you have a little bit more marinade and you're cooking that down. See something. It smells delicious. I can't wait to add the marinade because then it's going to smell even more delicious. And for ground chicken, this is a great recipe because for this chili oil, you make a cup of chili oil and you only need half for this recipe, but you also only use half of a ground chicken. So if you use like ground pork too, you can have basically 2 meals in 1 week if you're really craving a lot of dandan mian. Okay, so right now the chicken is mostly cooked through. I believe it's getting there. Okay, so now I'm going to add the marinade. This is the time. And it's going to give it a great brown color. Mix that in. And so I would stir this for about 1 to 2 minutes until all of it's integrated with the meat or the other protein. And then if you have the preserved vegetables, that's when I would add it after about a minute. And then I would cook down the preserved vegetables with the chicken or the other protein for another minute or 2 so that everything is sort of well integrated with each other. So, well, you can see that it's coming through. Oh, it smells so good. The marinade. Okay. So I'm gonna just let that sit here. It's mostly cooked. And the nice thing about this dish is you can prepare the different components at different times, and you won't have to immediately add them to one another. So like this chicken, although we've cooked it now, we can wait until the end to add it. Okay, so I'm just gonna leave that on the stove. Right now, my oil is still sort of at a low temperature point. It's starting to bubble and fizz around the cinnamon, so I know it's heating up. Yeah, so I'll keep a really sharp eye on that to make sure it doesn't go over. And I've monitored it, so I've lowered it to medium/simmer. Okay. So a lot of this recipe, you'll have to wait a little bit between things, but one other thing we could do now is we can sort of prepare the garnishes. So if you have a scallion stock, I would recommend just like bringing that up. So you could just have the scallions ready. One other thing you could do now is you could start boiling the water. So actually I'll do that too, because I want my noodles to be ready. So right now, I think you could see I have a little pot at the edge. I filled it with water. I should actually put a little bit more water in that. But then I'm going to, I have flat noodles that are sort of thin. And these are, it's called Beijing noodles. And they are made, let's look at the ingredient list. They're made with wheat flour, water, and salt. And so there's different, noodles come in all shapes and sizes. You can get them extremely thin, you could get them like medium thin, or you can get them thick. And so I personally have this on me today. So I'm going to start boiling the water and get these ready.
Just while you're doing that, we have one question.
Yeah, for sure.
Should the meat or whatever protein be drained before adding the marinade to it? Like if there's excess like oil or anything.
If you added a lot of oil, I would drain, but I didn't add so much oil, so I didn't drain.
Great, thank you.
I'm gonna just add some more water.
As we're waiting, how is it going, everybody? We're scanning to see how you're doing. Some of you are cooking, some of you are taking notes. Some of you have cats jumping on your lap.
I have to say that the tofu definitely needed double the amount of marinade.
Oh wow, okay. Is it soaking up all the marinade? What's it looking like right now?
I can show you. Hold on.
Ilana, did you drain your tofu before you started, before you added it to your marinade?
I don't know if you can see, but it's like a little bit glistening, but not much.
And did you drain your tofu before you, did you like press it before you added it?
What I do with my tofu, and I've gotten into the habit of this because I'm too lazy to press it when you buy it fresh. I always put tofu in the freezer and defrost it. And then you don't have to do that much pressing, and it also makes the texture meatier and absorbs flavors much better.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
That's such a great trick. You put it in the freezer?
It is like a game changer. That's why I use tofu so much, because I freeze it all in it, and it makes it so much more versatile when wanting to make like heartier dishes. I throw it in the air fryer, like it's just the best.
Okay.
This also brings up a good point too. There's another Sichuan dish that uses tofu called Mapo Tofu, if you've heard of that before. So that if you're making chili with oil with us now, you can make the same chili oil and add it to your Mapo Tofu. And like, look at you have 2 recipes in one.
I've never made Mapo Tofu, so that's awesome. Thank you. I have all these ingredients now.
Yeah, that's also a delicious dish too. Okay, so my oil's still heating up. It's a little slower because I started at a lower temperature than last time. Right now it's at about 250. But I want it to get to over 300. So I will patiently wait for that. Yeah, I actually made Mapo Tofu not so long ago. It was from Danny Bowen's cookbook. He founded this restaurant in San Francisco called Mission Chinese. He also had like an outpost in New York.
I've been.
his was really interesting too, because he uses tomato paste in his Mapo Tofu, and so you get like an extra tomatoey taste to your dish. And I thought it was actually pleasantly nice, though I don't think I'd use tomato paste in my future dishes. One other funny story from learning about Mission Chinese is that Danny once made a dish that was just ice, and he put chili oil over the top, and he charged $8 for it. And I think that's, critics actually really liked it because they couldn't tell it was ice when they were eating it. So I think that was like food and art at its finest. But yeah, you can really do interesting things with these ingredients. And
Well, I wonder you could share with us your tried recipe of Mapo Tofu. I mean, I tried making it. It's not that easy actually to get the taste right.
Yeah, I can send you the recipe from the book that I used. So if you're curious, like drop your email. Let me actually put my email into the chat. So if you have any questions afterwards, or do you, Julia, do we go through you to get questions or?
Yeah, we can send out your contact info afterwards if you're cool.
Okay, yeah, that's awesome.
I'll send it in the follow-up email tomorrow
Yeah.
for anyone who has questions for Jess.
All right, so it's heating up. It's about still a little on the low side. The water is heating up. We're just waiting. I guess I could also introduce myself too. I didn't really take some time. I'm Jess. Halfway through this class, making Dandan noodles for you today. But in my spare time, I really like looking and researching ancient cuisines. And so this past year, I made some of the oldest recipes in the world from Mesopotamia, which is the sort of the site where written language was invented, and that's where my interest in making traditional foods, ancient foods at home, stemmed from, and I've had a lot of practice during quarantine. And like since then, I've had a chance to make more ancient Mesopotamian foods, more ancient Egyptian foods as well, ancient Chinese foods, and I'm on the lookout for more ancient types of foods. So if you have any recommendations, you should let me know, because I'm really also interested in that as well.
Jess, what's the most interesting like ancient food you've made or tried?
Yeah, let me think about that for a second. I guess one interesting fact is a lot of the dishes from ancient Mesopotamia are extremely difficult to make. So they had a real gastronomy back then. So even though like the climate was different, the method of preparation was different, the utensils and cookware they used were different, you can easily sort of try to recreate them in your home, but it's still a very complex dish. It's no means like extremely simple to make. So I guess the one that stood out to me that I made was this one in ancient Egypt, actually called tiger nut cone. And if you look up tiger nut, it's a type of nut that looks like a tiger. And I'm not entirely sure which one came first, but I assume the nut came first in the name. And in ancient Egypt, they mashed up these nuts with their feet and their hands, and then like shaped them into pyramid cones. And I would say they're interesting to eat. I wouldn't call them the most delicious, but I really appreciate like the culture behind it. There's different drawings and depictions on walls of people making this, and so I think that's like a really cool thing to look at.
So where do you find those recipes? Like, is there a cookbook, or can you read hieroglyphics?
Yeah, sadly I can't read hieroglyphics, but there are translators who have like translated the recipes but haven't actually made them. I think a lot of people are like either too afraid to actually try to make them because they might not sound delicious, or they'll like look at the like hieroglyphics or the pictures and not know what to make of them. But they're actually research archives that do go into the stories. And so I actually base a lot of my recipes off of the stories and interviews with people rather than like finding a recipe myself. So in a way it's both an interpretation, but also trying to like adapt an ancient cuisine to a modern like palate.
Very cool.
Hey Jess, I'm going back and I just want to say thanks everyone for your patience. We're getting about hundreds of questions a minute that are coming in from all of you on the line. So we appreciate everyone understanding if we don't get to one right away. We're doing our best. We just might have missed it. So a question from Gabrielle. You mentioned a recipe that Danny used and that he put ketchup in. Is there a book you'd recommend with that?
Yeah, so I believe he does have a cookbook. don't know the specific name of the cookbook. I'm looking that up right now. It's just called the Mission Chinese Food Cookbook. And so that's Danny Bowen is a Chinese American chef, and he's not, he wasn't trained in like, well, actually, I shouldn't speak on his biography because I'm not really well read, but he is a chef who is well known for like making very experimental Chinese food, but also playing with traditional food. So like he did make this Mapo Tofu, but he added an untraditional ingredient, which is this tomato paste. And he talks a little bit more about it in his book too. There are other recipe developers too that are somehow evading my mind right now who have made delicious Mapo Tofu. I would, for bloggers, Walks of Life is really great. I go to them all the time if I need inspiration. Yeah, I'll think of some things as well and pass it along to you too.
Yeah, thank you. And then for those of you who are asking about his name, I just posted a link to his information about his restaurant. I think I found it correctly.
Oh, yeah. I should mention too, he was investigated for workplace.
Oh, whoops! I really did not put
but it is relevant to know. We need to put some context to who this is as well.
My bad. This is what happens when you're live and you're researching to answer questions that are coming. Cindy, you seem to have a question, but I don't think I've seen your question. Could you please unmute and ask it?
Hello, I was asking about the in step 2 with the mushroom and the protein. I'm not sure if you mentioned, Jessica, about a rice vinegar.
Yes, rice wine vinegar, commonly known as Shaoxing wine.
Oh, okay.
Chinese. But I personally use mirin. Sorry, it's not a rice wine vinegar. I'm misspeaking. I'm sorry. That's
okay.
It's a Chinese rice wine.
Okay, so
sorry about that.
So just erase the idea of the vinegar and just use
it's not vinegar.
Okay.
I'm so sorry about that, everyone.
And I don't and I got a message, Julia, about start my video. I don't have a camera, so that's why.
Got it.
That's I'm very limited. So
thanks for letting us know. We always love to see everyone if it's possible. Thanks for your question and your patience.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so actually my oil's heated up, and so I'm ready to show you what it looks like now. So we have our chili flakes. Oil is heated up, ready to go. So I take a strainer. There's other ways you could sort of filter the peppercorns and the spices through, but this is tried and true method for me. And I just pour, and as I'm pouring, you can see it start to bubble underneath. And that's where the chili flakes are mixing with the oil, and it's really hot, so don't touch it. Don't be tempted to pop a bubble. All right. So while and make sure the bowl you do toss your oil into is heat resistant, so it's not gonna like burn through the bowl. So I'm using a stainless steel bowl. And so that's that with this. So I'm just gonna let this rest. This makes about 1 cup of chili oil, which is more than enough for this recipe for 4 people. Meanwhile, guess we timed it correctly. The water is boiling, but we can start making this. So I'm gonna take the noodles, like approximate for about 2 people. It's a little handful. So in my recipe, I said 1 pound. If you're less than that, you can take less than a pound, but sometimes I like to have leftovers too in case I'm really hungry. So I'm gonna come over again. I'm gonna just put the noodles in the water. I can't really angle it. So the noodles are gonna start cooking. Put it down. It's delicious.
Jess, a question about the chili oil.
Yeah.
Do you recommend using the chili oil recipe or using chili crisp?
I would recommend using the chili oil recipe. I do admit it does take a little bit longer because you have to wait for the oil to heat up like you just saw. Because the one missing ingredient from the chili crisp is the Sichuan peppercorns, I believe. And so that's a pretty big part of this recipe. But I guess the one nice thing about this recipe too is if you do have the Sichuan peppercorns, you can use a mortar and pestle, a grinder to grind it down into a really nice powder. And so if you're really short on time, you can sprinkle that over your dandan noodles. And it sort of adds some of the similar flavor that you would get as well. So as you can see now, it's cooled down. It's a really nice, dark red. I can even smell it. It smells delicious. It's going to be delicious in this. Okay, so my noodles are cooking, and I usually give that 5 to 6 minutes to really cook. And you could test it out too if you want it more al dente or soft. But meanwhile, we have one more thing to make. We're not quite done yet. We have to make the dandan sauce. And so that's where the sesame paste that we talked about earlier comes in. You'll need this. You'll also need 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, 1 tablespoon of sugar, 2 cloves of garlic minced, and then 1/4 cup of hot water, which you can just take from the boiling noodles. So right now I'm gonna start chopping up some garlic. To go all the way over here. I'm a really big fan of garlic, so that's why if I do make chili oil, I try to add garlic into it too. I think it's just delicious on top of a piece of bread or dumplings, or just adding an extra piece of flavor. So I'm gonna mince.
Just so right now, sorry, I'm a little lost. Are you making the sesame sauce?
Yes, I'm making the dandan sauce, and right now I am chopping the garlic.
Okay, and we got a question that yes, this does contain the chili oil.
Yes, this is the sauce where the chili oil is added to. This is the sauce where you get to add the chili oil. And you don't, the other thing I mentioned is you don't add all of the chili oil, so you can save this chili oil for another dish, like if you're making Mapo Tofu, or if you want to add it on dumplings, or if you want to make this recipe again in the future, you'll just have it on demand. Yeah, and so that's one nice thing about this recipe is you'll have some extras, and it's really easy to make again once you make it the first time. Okay, again, so that's why it's nice to have all these bowls. So I have another bowl. I'm going to put the garlic into it. The other things we need are the sesame paste. So we need 2 tablespoons of that. I'm going to find my tablespoon. One somewhere. Oh, I think it's here. How's everyone doing? Any comments or questions or?
Yeah, Brianna, do you want to ask those 2 questions?
Yeah, so we have a couple questions. Can the chili oil be made sweeter, or does it take away from the recipe?
So that's a good question. So for the dandan sauce, one of the ingredients in it is sugar. And so if you want something that's sweeter, the time where I would sort of go heavy on the sugar, heavier on the sugar.
And then how many does this recipe serve?
This recipe serves 4 people. So I've tried it every time, and it comes out to usually 4 adult portions. Of course, if you're really hungry, you could probably finish like 1.5. I actually did that the first time I made it, and I couldn't eat dinner. So, okay, so I have the sesame paste, then I'll need 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. Hopefully everyone's been able to manage these 3 parts. I know I'm throwing a lot at you. Okay, so we just added the soy sauce. We need 1 tablespoon of sugar. Approximate. And then we need 1/2 cup of chili oil. This is delicious. Part of it. Take the 1/2 cup from earlier. And I'm going to pour. Still a little bit hot, so watch out. Okay, delicious. And then we need finally 1/4 cup of hot water. And I'm just gonna steal from the boiling noodles because that already exists.
Repurposing.
Yes. And then now this is really just it. This is the Dandan sauce. And once you mix it together, you'll see the sesame paste integrate with the chili oil. It's going to be smelling delicious, hopefully. Wow, I'm so excited. This is like the part where I get the most excited because I get all the smells coming up my nostrils.
Oh, I'm sure it smells amazing. I'm really jealous of everyone who's cooking right now.
So here's what it looks like currently. It's a little bit brown. It has the chili flakes that were in the chili oil, and the soy sauce and the garlic and everything is in there. So this is actually the base sauce. So you're pretty much nearly there. We have the meat, we have the sauce, and now we're just waiting for the noodles. Of course, you can find some garnishes too. So I have sesame seeds on hand. I've cut up some scallions for myself. You can, if you want to go extremely spicy, you can take these Sichuan peppercorns and use like a mortar and pestle, which I actually have. I didn't use it today, but you could use one of these to like grind it up, or you could use a spice grinder, which is actually a more efficient and effective way. I have a friend who has a spice grinder and borrowed his once, and it made the process of grinding a lot easier. So I'm just gonna place this bowl over here, and I have another bowl with meat. I'm also going to place that.
Yes, a couple quick questions. Just to clarify on the recipe, when you say scallion, that's also green onion, right?
Yes, sorry, green onion. So I take
Cool.
for the garnish, I usually have 1 or 2 stalks of green onion.
And then how long do you like to let the noodles boil? Is it whatever the package says? Do you have something special?
Package says I'm someone who usually like looks at it and tastes it and sees if it's okay, but for this one, I think it's around like 6 to 8 minutes, 5 to 6 to 8 minutes. So I think it should be nearly done right now. I'm going to actually check up on it.
How's everyone doing? Those who might be cooking along, anybody want to show us your progress? Keep us in suspense. Okay. Christine, looks like there's a lot going on in your kitchen. I'm gonna add you. How's it going?
I'm here with my friend Laura, and we're doing a good job. It's the kitchen is getting cleaned while we're cooking because we're double teaming.
Wow.
Only because she cleans, and I really don't care. So because it's my kitchen.
Aren't there so many moving parts to this? It's kind of what makes it fun.
Yeah. By the way, were we supposed to already have cooked the leafy greens?
Those can be cooked right now. Yeah, I just boil them. But sometimes I just have them raw on the side. Yeah, this is like mostly as a garnish. But if you're looking for a leafy green, I would start cooking it now.
Okay.
For the plating, yeah.
Thank you. We also saved some mushrooms for the leafy greens. Just so. Do something different. Thank you.
Yeah. So I just drain the noodles, and once I've drained the noodles, they're really hot, so I actually add hot. This was a trick I learned when I was making a lot of boba for friends and like doing pop-ups. Is I also add cold water right afterwards once I've drained out the noodles, so it becomes a little bit chewier. So that's a little trick that I learned. So now I have the noodles; they're cooling down, and I'm going to just bring the meat over as well. Alrighty. So I guess I've reached the finish end. So I have everything in front of me that I need to have. How is everyone else doing? Cool. I can just go ahead and show you how to assemble things. And if you're still working, no worries at all. Yeah, just follow along when you get to this point, or take notes for next time. So I have the noodles, and I do want to keep it serving. So I'm gonna take 1 serving of noodles for myself. Let's see how they're still sort of warm and hot. You can wait for them to drain a little bit more, but I'm really eager. So once we have this portioned out, we're going to add about 1/4 of this this Dandan sauce, and I believe it's a fourth cup, because we make around a cup of this Dandan sauce in total. And so I have my measuring cup, sorry. I'm gonna pour it and drizzle it on the top. So
if you need like around a cup of the sauce, it will be around a 4th cup for each serving.
Yes,
so if you're making 2 servings, it'll be 1/2 a cup.
Yeah, if you're making 2 servings, which is quite a lot, but if you're really hungry, you can definitely eat it. And then for the meat, I would also add about a 4th cup. It really depends on how much you make, but that's usually how much I make too. So I do like my leafy greens, but I also just really like the noodles, and my favorite part's the sauce, and so I'm okay with just eating leafy greens later. It doesn't necessarily need to be with this noodles. And so we have this, can sprinkle scallions on the top, and I have my sesame seeds as well, so I'm going to sprinkle that on the top. And I guess this is it. We sort of finished our bowl of dandan noodles, minus the leafy greens, which I might probably make after this. I don't know if my parents might be on the call. I don't want to disappoint them by not eating greens, but here we have it, our dandan noodles.
That looks great, Jess. Thank you. Let's see, is anyone else done with theirs? Oh, let's see, Barbara.
A couple quick things.
That looks great.
Let's see. What should we tag for your Instagram, Jess? Do you have a public Instagram? We'll put Tradition Kitchens in as well.
I do have a public Instagram. It's not a food public Instagram. So actually I do have a food Instagram too, now that I think about it. So my food Instagram is at Gouda Talks.
Gouda? Like the
Gouda, like the cheese. The background story for this is I used to run a podcast, and it's a play on words for good talk. It's no
Nice.
longer running right now, but hopefully maybe in the future.
Cool. I just put it in the chat. These look really cute. Oh my gosh, we might have to request other foods you teach us. And then what kind of leafy greens do you recommend?
Yeah, so I put in the doc, you can use bok choy, you can use yo choy or other Chinese leafy vegetables. I have also used spinach in the past. So things that are like leafy, bright, would just sort of add like a refreshing bite to your dish as well.
Cool. And I really want to know, are your parents on the call? We want to meet them. Are they here? Do they want to say hello?
I don't even know. I haven't checked.
All right, we'll look for them. Don't be shy if you're here. Mom and dad. Let's see. I'm looking through all these questions. Oh, someone wants to see your bowl again. Can you show us?
I definitely sort of just destroyed it by mixing it together. That's one way I'd recommend, is for you to mix it together. I mean, it's pretty in presentation, but it's more delicious if everything's integrated. And yeah, here's the bowl. I would love to know, for people who have finished, what they think.
Yeah, let's see who's finished. I think Barbara had her hand raised before. Do you have a question?
I just wanted to brag a little bit. I have fresh bok choy from my garden.
Oh, very
You see my
cool.
bok choy, baby
Yeah,
bok choy, and fresh spinach from my garden. So that's what I'm going to eat it with.
very cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Uh-huh.
Let's see, did anyone else finish? Heather, how is it going for you?
Just adding the sauce now.
Very nice. Let's see who else finished. Where was Christine? I know she was cooking. Did she leave? Oh, she's still here. How is it?
It's Christine and Laura, who are best friends. And even though we're old, we still get to be best friends. So this is actually, you can't see because we put the scallions on top, but we did one with mushrooms and one with pork. And they look exactly the same, but one's got mushrooms and one's got pork. Except we didn't talk about the sesame seeds yet. We're doing that right now. We're doing that now.
Awesome. Enjoy it.
What's funny is you didn't mention, like, every recipe always says like salt and pepper to taste, and I don't remember hearing salt and pepper to taste, and that's probably because the fermented vegetables are so salty and peppery.
And then what happened to the boiled water, the hot water?
Oh, to put in the Dandan sauce, you just put a 1/4 cup of hot water to integrate things.
You didn't do that.
I think it'll be okay. I think it'll be okay. It'd be surprising.
Yeah. But by the way, like, we've each had a glass of wine, so maybe that's why. Long day. But I wish I could show you the kitchen, because the kitchen is also very clean right now.
Wow, this is so impressive.
Be impressed with her. Don't be impressed.
By the way, that's like my magic trick, is that I sacrifice about 15% of the food quality so that the kitchen is perfectly clean when I'm done.
I sacrifice no food quality, and my kitchen is a disgusting pigsty when I'm done.
Yeah. But like, I'm super happy when I'm eating. I'm like, I don't even have any dishes to do besides the 2 I'm eating on. So it makes sense.
That means you guys should just always cook together then.
Well, she's willing to clean.
No,
She was like, I'm not gonna measure. Do you care if I measure? Yes,
Yeah,
I care if you measure.
I don't even measure. I just use my palms for
But
like,
I'm a total measuring
I don't
bitch.
measure
I'm like
anything.
a total measuring bitch.
Awesome. Thank you guys for sharing. Enjoy your noodles.
Yeah, so I don't swear anymore.
Jess is digging in. This is great. Anyone else want to share or ask any final questions? We may have inadvertently missed some as we kind of went fast and wanted to focus on the cuisine, but we'd love to see or answer. Also a plug, if any of you have a special dish that you want to teach, we always welcome that. Barbara says it's spicy. Got a kick to it, cleaning out your sinuses if anybody's got some pollen in there like me. All right, well, I think we will stay on for a couple of minutes, but Brianna, you want to wrap us up with our final announcements and upcoming classes?
Yeah, so Jess, thank you so much for teaching. This was a great class, and I'm sure everyone who cooked your kitchen smell amazing. So I'm just going to post in the chat a few of our upcoming classes. This one is a Chinese Peruvian rice dish with actually a couple of my professors from my college, so I'm pretty excited for that. That is this coming Saturday at 2 p.m. And then we have an Indonesian yellow rice dish that's taught by Shri, who is here tonight. I think she doesn't have her camera on, but we're very excited for her to teach as well. That's on the 17th at 4 p.m. EST. And then our last little plug here is for tofu butter masala, which is, let me check the date for that.
The 24th of April.
Yes, the 24th of April at 1 p.m. So if you'd like to sign up, we'd love to see you all there. We sort of have a rice noodle carb theme going on for April, which I'm not complaining about. So yeah. Oh, I see Betty has her hand raised. What's up, Betty?
You know, this is the first cooking dish or the first cooking class I've ever taken.
You were kidding.
No, it's really the first one.
Did you like it? I mean,
Yeah.
it was a hard one.
Oh, we have a few more up and coming if you want to join us for those too.
But we do cook like this at home a lot, so.
I'm super excited. Thank you so much. I didn't realize you were.
Yeah, thank you. We double need you, don't worry. Great to have you all. And I think we're gonna call it a day, a night, wherever you are. Thank you, Jess. This was so fun. We loved learning from you and everyone. Can't wait to see how everything turned out. We will send you all the recipe. We will send you the recording. What else? All our upcoming classes. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you everyone for coming. It was great to see you all.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Jess. Thank you.
Thanks. Good night.
Bye.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Jess, it looks like you have a couple of fans.
Show your faces.